A man named Jone Jones had entered a cave near Utah Lake with the intention of exploring. The final decision of his life was about to be made. He was crawling through the narrow passages of this cave, known as Nutty Putty Cave, but he lost his way and accidentally entered a part of the cave where no one had been until now. It was a place as narrow as a grave, in which it was difficult to move a hand, even to breathe, and unfortunately, Jone Jones was stuck upside down in this condition. This is the story of 26-year-old Jone Jones, who spent the last 27 hours of his life in this cave. Welcome back to Voyage Vault. Near Salt Lake City in Utah, there are small rocks that contain this hydrothermal cave called Nutty Putty Cave. In 1960, this cave was first discovered by a man named Dale Green, and since then thousands of young people have gone there to practice their skills. Nutty Putty Cave is famous for its narrow, slippery, and crooked passageways with only one entrance, and at two only 30 inches wide, meaning that youth whose waist and chest are less than 30 inches can go inside it. Around 20,000 people come here every year to polish their skills. But then between 1999 and 2004, there were some accidents here, and many questions were raised about the safety of the cave. On one occasion, a 23-year-old youth was trapped deep in the cave for 7 hours, and on another occasion, a youth spent the whole night in the cave. In 2006, the authorities shut down Nutty Putty Cave due to these accidents. But the professional cavers said that if it had to be closed, it should be closed only for those people who have no experience of caving, because often the same people fall here. On the other hand, officials said that Nutty Putty Cave is nothing less than a time bomb that can kill anyone at any time. The war between professional cavers and officials continued for Nutty Putty, and it was finally reopened in 2007 with new rules, and a management committee was formed inside the cave. Only those who have good experience in caving and who have professional equipment will be allowed to go to Nutty Putty. A permit had to be applied for 21 days in advance, and for the same permit, two brothers in Salt Lake City, John and Josh Jones, also applied. On November 24th, 2009, at 8 p.m., 26-year-old Jone Jones entered the Nutty Putty Cave system with his group. Everything went normally as they explored the biggest cavity, called the Big Slide. This was the point when John, Josh, and two other friends risked going deeper into the cave, the most difficult part of the cave. What is called the birth canal is so narrow that until now, very few people have gone near it. Not only is it very narrow, but it is also quite difficult to find one's way. But John, his brother, and two friends were fit enough, and then they decided to go to the birth canal while the rest of the team members stayed behind. The path ahead was so narrow that John was crawling on his stomach, thinking he was entering the birth canal path when he unknowingly took a wrong turn into another path where only the thinnest of cavers could go. Judging by the map of the cave, this was the path where John was supposed to go to the right birth canal, and as he took a left turn, the path narrowed as he went, and he couldn't turn back, but he kept going. He went in the hope that maybe the path ahead would be a little wider, and he could come back from there. He saw a place down below, and here John thought he might be able to turn back. Here things got worse because unfortunately, when he entered the 10 by 18-inch passage, there was a dead end ahead, and now John was stuck upside down in a space the size of a washing machine, head down, legs up, and a space so tight that even his hands were pressed against his body. That is, he was not even able to use his hands. John tried to get out of here several times, but never succeeded. Now John started calling out to his brother. After a few minutes, when Josh came there, he only saw John's legs. He made fun of his brother's condition, but when he realized the serious situation, Josh also panicked. Josh grabbed his brother's legs and pulled them several times, but this made matters worse because now John went down even more. Trapped upside down, unable to move his body at all, at this point, the two brothers felt that they needed professional help. Now the problem was that there was no cell phone signal deep in the cave to call 911. So Josh got out, made a call to 911, and went back to his brother's location. About 3 hours later, the first rescue team arrived on the scene. It was Susie Motola who spent 2 hours trying to get John out, but John was stuck worse than she had hoped. The space was so tight that Susie even cut John's jeans to get a half centimeter more space. But even that didn't work. Finally, Susie got exhausted and came back outside. John's wife, his daughter, and 30 other people from the rescue team had also arrived. They were all considering different ways to get John out, one of which was to cut off his legs. But finally, they all agreed on using ropes and a pulley system that would be tied to John's legs and pulled. But the problem was that the various pulleys had to be drilled into the rocks of the cave so that the ropes did not hit the rocks and the entire load was on the pulleys. So pulleys were fixed by drilling into the rocks of the cave, in which there was a risk that the stone would break, and they could also block the road, but at present there was no other option. During the drilling, some stones broke and slid, falling on top of John at a depth of 700 feet. This work was very difficult and also time-consuming. The number of rescue workers was more than 100, but they were unable to do anything because, at one time, only one rescue worker could do work in the cave. A doctor in the rescue team outside the cave made matters worse when he said that John was stuck upside down. If so, he had only 10 hours. That is, after this time, his organs would fail one by one. The human body is designed to be upright, with the location of the heart in the upper part of the body. The heart pumps blood throughout the body and supplies about 80% of the blood to the lower parts, where it is supplied by gravity. It is easily reached, but because John is now upside down, his heart will have to work harder to pump blood up to 80% of the body, in which the heart will have to work overtime. So a heart attack can happen at any time. After realizing this, the rescue workers tried to speed up to at least get John upright. After hours of waiting, the pulleys were installed and John was pulled by the legs, but they soon ran into new problems. The legs were in such a position that they could not be bent, and when they pulled the legs, the feet would hit the roof of the cave. With great difficulty, they pulled John out of the pit, but at the last moment, a pulley came out of the cave wall, and John was now stuck back where he was before. John was now panicking enough to be put into a two-way communication system so he could talk to his wife and relax a little. Preparations for another pull were completed. This work had to be done very carefully, as with each pull, John's legs were under great pressure. With great difficulty, this time he was pulled out far enough that his face could now be seen by rescue workers. The rescue worker later said that John's eyes were red and there were moments of joy on his face. For the first time in 19 hours, John was able to see out of the narrow passage-like pit. Now all that was needed was one last pull, and John would have been completely out of the pit. But then with a sudden jolt, the pulley failed again, and John returned to the place he was before. In a last-ditch attempt to save John, they tried to break the rocks around him by drilling, but it was probably too late. John had stopped moving and was not responding. His wife also tried to revive John on the radio, but to no avail. At this point, a brave paramedic was sent down to take John's pulse. What everyone suspected happened. John was pronounced dead at 11:50 p.m. on November 25, 2009. John's wife was in disbelief when she heard the news that her husband had died because of such a small mistake. The reality was in front of everyone. But what the doctors had hoped for after only 10 hours, John's good health allowed him to live for another 17 hours. Several plans were created to exhume John's dead body, in which the idea of exhuming the body in two parts came up, but finally, it was decided to leave the body there, close the entire Nutty Putty cave forever, and declare it as John's grave. The dead body of Jone Jones also serves as a reminder of the dangers of cave exploration in the same position inside the cave. And there is also a plaque outside the cave commemorating him. If you liked the video, then subscribe to Voyage Vault.